In today's video, we unbox the Kings of War Shadows in the North 2-player starter set from Mantic Games, as well as some Goblin goodness for Kings of War Vanguard. Well, hi folks, it's Lee from SkirmishWargames.com. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at Kings of War Shadows in the North, a new 2-player starter set from Mantic Games, and this was released just toward the end of October. So this definitely was a discretionary purchase, but it looks like there's some really cool minis in here and a lot of value. I saw some pictures of these guys in particular on Facebook, these Northern Warriors, and they look very inspired by Game of Thrones. In fact, I think if you get down to some specific miniatures, they might remind you of certain characters. And apparently this set also comes with a copy of the new Kings of War 3rd edition rulebook. Kings of War has been around in one version or another since about 2010. And we're hearing some pretty good things about this mass battle rule set. Now that's not typically the type of game that we play, simply because the number of miniatures involved and the ranks and things like that. But fortunately, about a year ago, Mantic came out with Kings of War Vanguard, which is sort of the skirmish version of their Kings of War game. So I did get this a few months back. We haven't cracked it open, but now that we have this starter set and some of the other things we've been working on, we can probably assemble some pretty decent Kings of War Vanguard warbands. And I believe the army lists and the basic rules are also available on the Mantic website for free as a PDF. So we'll definitely be taking a look at that. But today the order of business is to take a look at the Kings of War Shadows in the North starter set. And also about the same time, just for the heck of it, we ordered some Kings of War Vanguard Goblins, because we have a bunch of older Games Workshop Goblins, but not enough to really field a decent warband. So we're going to use these, kind of augment them with some of the Games Workshop stuff we have. And here's another little set. This is the Goblin reinforcement pack that goes with the Kings of War Vanguard Goblin Warband set. So pricing is always kind of interesting on starter sets. So this Kings of War Shadows in the North 2-player set was about 80 bucks, I think. And I think they say in here that you get all of these minis and the rule book and a bunch of other stuff. So that's about 88 miniatures for $80. This Goblin set was about 40 bucks, and you get 12 Goblins, and then this Goblin reinforcement pack was 15 bucks, and you get 3 Goblins, even though they are metal. So you can see they kind of get you in the system at a very reasonable price, and then you got to decide how much investment you want to put in the various expansions. And apparently we did want to expand a little bit. And
Goblins, we like goblins.
Because Lynn likes to paint goblins, and we already have some that we're working on. And I think I even bought on eBay. This is a little eBay find. I think I paid $19 for this. And it is an old Warhammer. It's probably about 10 years old. An old Warhammer sort of Night Goblins build and paint set. And I think you get, what do you get? Like 10 little goblins with spears. So between these and some of the other ones we've already painted, and these guys should be able to put together a pretty good goblin warband. So you don't have to paint the goblins if you don't want to.
Mine.
So, okay. Yeah, I figure if I keep you loaded up with goblins, then you'll lay off some of the other miniatures that you want to kind of snatch out of my pile, and then because my rate of painting is considerably slower. So anyway, we will today we will just for fun, after we open the starter box here, we'll look at these goblins too and see what they look like. But for the time being, we're going to crack open this giant Kings of War Shadows in the North 2-player starter set and see what's in here and what we get for our $80 investment, and then we'll take a look at the goblins and some of the other stuff. Okay, this is from Mantic Games. Okay. All right, yeah, it's a satisfying amount of plastic in there. All right. So do you want to, why don't you take a minute and pull those guys out of the plastic, and I'll take a look at the rule books here. So right off the bat with these minis, I see that they're going to be using square bases, and I know that the game, the larger game, Kings of War, uses movement trays. And frankly, these days we're trying to put round bases on everything just for consistency, because that seems to work with a lot of different games that we play, and not everything is really made for square bases. Not that it makes any difference, but you know, that's just the way we're doing it. So we may not use these bases at all. We'll have to see what the minis look like when we pull them out of the bags. And it's always a nice touch when they include a getting started booklet. Looks like we do indeed get a full-size rule book here, but it's pretty cool when they speed the process along, kind of lower that learning curve somewhat, and give you a getting started book. So let's see kind of what we got here. All right, yeah, nice touch there. A little assembly guide for people who may not have dealt with sprues before. So it looks like the factions we're going to have here is the Northern Alliance. That's these guys, and then the Nightstalkers, Scarecrows, and Spectres. And that's pretty cool because, as we've said before, you can always use a variety of undead miniatures and then soldiers. Maybe the torsos and limbs and heads of these soldiers can be combined with some North Star figures or other plastic kits just for kit bashing. So we'll have to see how compatible those might be. Painting guide. Yeah, that's pretty helpful. Basic gameplay. Playing a campaign. And of course, expanding your forces because that's where the money is. Get you hooked with this nice starter set, and then we'll help you come back and buy some different things. And
some of those look pretty cool.
they do look pretty cool. It's a big Shadow Hulk here.
I like the flying one.
That is a Lord on a Chimera. And then here are some of the different factions. Dwarves, Elves, Forces of Nature, Ogres, Trident Realm, Abyssal Dwarves, Orcs, Goblins, Forces of the Abyss. So, Goblins, Orcs, we have Dwarves. You've been working on a lot of Dwarves. And some of you may remember that just recently we did a big unboxing on a bunch of discount Rune Wars stuff. And they had Elves, they had Spearmen, they had a bunch of other things that could be certainly used for a skirmish version of this game. With that in mind, let's take a quick look at the rulebook, and we'll take a look at the minis. Okay, Kings of War, the Game of Fantasy Battles. This is version 3. Mantic Entertainment, 2019. So yeah, a lot of movement tray action, it looks like. And up to this point, we really haven't gotten into a lot of movement tray type games. We try to stay with smaller games simply because just easier to produce the number of miniatures that we need, and since we like to hop from game to game, it's hard to invest too heavily in any one system. But that is just us. And certainly if you built out the armies for Kings of War, I'm sure you could use them for other fantasy games as well. So how are those sprues looking over there, Lynn?
Lots and lots of pieces.
Lots of pieces.
Except for the big dudes.
Magic system. Army lists. Okay, so they include all the army lists in here. That's pretty cool. I personally don't mind when a system uses unit cards, but it's always kind of a pain in the butt when you have to buy the unit box to get the requisite cards. So the fact that they include the information for the various factions here means that you can use other miniatures you've already painted up for other systems and put them to use in Kings of War right away, which I think is a pretty nice thing. So, good. So that is the Kings of War version 3 rulebook. We also have our Kings of War Vanguard skirmish rules, which is probably what we're going to be using at least initially. And let's take a look at some of the figures they've included with our starter set. Okay, so these are the Snow Trolls. This is a Snow Trolls regiment. So that's these guys here.
And they give you extra arms and stuff, so you can decide what you want
Right.
them to have and extra faces.
Okay. So those are your Snow Trolls. You get 3 of those, it looks like. That's these guys here. All right, let's take a look at some of those sprues. Hand me some sprues. So I think these are... So it looks like the Northern Alliance army also includes pack hunters and clansmen. And they look pretty similar right now, but I'm sure once we start getting into the sprues, when that time comes, then be able to tell some subtle distinctions. But you get quite a few of those guys. It looks like about... So the whole army is 44, of which it looks like about 40 of them are these kind of Arctic warriors. So the Northern Alliance is going to be facing the Shadows of the Night. Again, much like a recent HBO series. Nightstalker, Spectre troops, a Butcher's regiment.
That would be these guys.
That would be, yeah, that would be these guys here. And just on first look, they kind of remind me of those troops from Avengers Infinity War that kind of attacked Wakanda. And then we also get these Scarecrows. I can see using Scarecrow troops in a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different systems, along with zombies and other, Halloween-y type characters. So, yeah, I'm kind of digging that.
And here's the 2. That's the Nightstalker Horror and the Icekin Master from the Warriors of the Alliance.
Oh, okay. So these are the 2 leaders. Just looking at them now, they look like they're going to need a little bit of cleanup. A little bit of flash on those guys.
And a lot of little parts on those guys.
Yeah. These sprues look pretty clean, though, these hard plastic sprues. So these here must be our Scarecrows. So I see a lot of sides and I at least see a lot of pointy hats. So who knew there were that many animated Scarecrows running around? And those guys will be kind of fun to put together because you can paint them in all kinds of crazy ways. And who's to tell you you're wrong? So yeah, we got a full regiment of those Scarecrows along with a whole bunch of Spectres. Those Spectres could be proxied for all kinds of generic undead. Okay, so that's what we got. And as we said before, they come with these kind of square trays. I don't know what's the purpose of this circle part in the square tray. I haven't quite figured that out yet. Because when I look at the figures, it looks like they would fit fine on a flat base, so I don't know what the purpose is of that.
They even look flat on the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is the Kings of War 2-player starter set, Shadows in the North, and I think for $80, that's a pretty good starter set. That would keep somebody busy. Building all those out and then, playing a few games, and then by that time, they'd probably be interested in picking up some expansions. And I have been hearing, even though we don't know that much about this system, the scuttlebutt I've been hearing has been pretty good. So good on Mantic for continuing to improve their product, and we wish them the best of luck with that. And we probably will be focusing more on Kings of War Vanguard, just because that's more in our wheelhouse. But who knows? Maybe we'll like this so much that we'll do some mass battles. Okay, and finally, just for fun, we'll take a look at the Goblin Warband set for Kings of War Vanguard. And we've got a few older Games Workshop Goblins that came from like the early 90s, and so it'll be fun to sort of build these guys out, merge them with our other Goblins, and then we have some generic spearmen here from this Battle for Skull Pass paint set. So that must be kind of their version of a starter set from maybe 20 years ago. And that should give us enough goblins for a decent warband. But let's go ahead and see what we got in here. And so, Lynn, you're kind of interested in painting the goblins, is that what I understand?
Yes. Goblins and dwarves.
Your favorite goblin was your goblin on your pogo stick for Blood Bowl.
Yes.
2nd edition. You remember that guy?
I like him.
And he almost got stomped by a tree man.
He almost got stomped by a tree man, but he hopped out of the way. I was very excited that he hopped out of the way.
So again, the starter set was, I think, about $80, give or take. And this was closer to $40. And then the little expansion set with the metal minis there was about another $15. So prices are kind of all over the place, but I guess if you don't go too crazy on the expansions, you can build a pretty good force without a whole lot of money. So it looks like the Goblin Reinforcement Pack comes with metal minis and then these cards. And the actual Goblin Warband set is mostly plastic with a couple of resin pieces and then some metal. So there's quite a bit in here. They got some metal accessories, looks like some spears and maybe some cloaks or shields or things like that. And then here's the resin guys. Again, this is from the Goblin Warband set. More resin guys. I'm assuming that's resin. So it looks like the standard kit for these guys is bows, but they must have included some metal parts if you want to give them spears. And then these resin guys are a little bit different. Maybe that's the leader, and maybe that guy there. So we do get cards for the Goblin Warband set. So faction-specific spells, say that 5 times fast. There's a Goblin Wizard. A Troll. So that's not included in the set, but they give you a card for one. A Maw Beast. A couple of those guys. That's some kind of Goblin Warhound, I guess. Rabble. Always good to have some rabble. Rabble, rabble, more rabble. A Spitter. That's a Bowman. Another Spitter. Okay. Okay, well that should be hopefully enough goblins to keep you busy for a while.
Perhaps.
And as long as we don't run out of green, we should be fine. I think we got a rattle can of green primer in the garage, so that might speed things up. All right, Lynn, well, I guess we can pile some of these guys up next to your big pile of Rune Wars miniatures that is still unpainted, and then my big pile of Reaper stuff and old vintage GW stuff that is unpainted. And so we have more than a few things to do to take us through the holidays. But our painting woes aside, we hope you enjoyed taking a look at this Kings of War Shadows in the North 2-player starter set for Kings of War 3rd edition, as well as the Goblin Warband set for Kings of War Vanguard, and a little Goblin reinforcement pack here. Well, folks, as always, thanks very much for watching. If you like the things we do here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please give this video a big thumbs up, and please visit us online at our website, skirmishwargames.com.